Hello friends, in this lecture we are going to understand the effect of glucocorticoid over the stress and a little bit about the regulation of the glucocorticoid. So first thing first, what is stress? As you guys already know the stress, but how will you define the stress? Right, the definition will be given in the guidance, so remember the term or remember the exact word. Any change in the environment that change or threaten to change existing optimal steady state. So basically, by definition, the stress is that any change that will leads to change in the homeostasis, it known as stress, right? Any change in the environment that ultimately lead to change the homeostasis, it will known as a stress. Now what are the type of the stress? So you need to write it down. First thing is the trauma, any injury, then the infection, injection or intense heat or the cold, injection of the any, that is norepinephrine, and any type of surgery. These are the type of the stress. Now what happen in stress? In any type of a stress, one thing will appear, that is increase ACTH secretion. Now once the ACTH secretion is high, it will eventually leads to increased cortisol secretion, and somehow this cortisol will leads to cope up with or resist the stress. Now why the cortisol secretion will high, what is the effect of cortisol, we are going to understand in this lecture. But first, in order to understand the effect of cortisol over the stress, let's understand something about inflammation, because cortisol has a role in inflammation. That is actually the topic of a second year, but we are going to discuss right now. What is inflammation? It is actually the pathology. Now what is inflammation? You can see inflammation, this one is the normal leg, this one is the inflamed leg. You guys are already know this particular type of the disease or the action of the this is followed by the fall down or somewhere. So what is actually happens in inflammation? So whenever there is a tissue injury occur by any disease, by any means, by any trauma, if you are fall down from the bicycle, or if you have a sprain in your leg, what will happens? Any related thing that is ultimately leads to tissue injury, that is bacterial infection, then yes, trauma, then any chemical or even heat. Whenever the tissue injury will occur, in that damaged tissue there are multiple substances get released, yes, by that injured tissue, and that injured tissue that causes dramatic secondary changes in the surrounding uninjured tissue, right? So basically the substance is actually released from the injured tissue, and that substance will eventually perform certain changes in the surrounding normal tissue or uninjured tissue. This entire complex of tissue change is called inflammation. So what is inflammation? Inflammation is that whenever any tissue get injured, after that injury, that injured tissue will release certain substances. That certain substances are eventually leads to tissue change in the surrounding normal tissue, and that change that take place in the normal tissue, that is known as inflammation. Now you need to remember the stages of the inflammation. Now first stages is that you see there are the skin injury. So first is that whenever there is a skin injury, this is just an example. If any type of injury, it will release the chemicals, it will first release the substance that activate the, see, this is the pain, it will eventually prick the skin, and there are some chemical signals or the chemical substance that is released, and that chemical substance are eventually activate the inflammatory process. Now what the second phase is that chemicals will ultimately causes the dilatation of the blood vessel nearby and migration of a leukocyte, right? This is basically vasodilatation. And the third stage or the final stage is the phagocytosis of that particular chemical. So there are only 3 stages written over in this diagram, but there are actually 5 stages. Let me give you one by one. First stage is that it will increase the release of a substance from the injured tissue. It starts the inflammatory process. Second stage is the dilatation of a blood vessel that is nearby. Third stage is that it increases the capillary permeability and leads to leakage of a plasma along with the WBC. Got it? Next stage is formation of the phagocytosis, and the fifth stage is the healing stage. There is a growth of fibrous tissue in order to heal the area. Now let's enumerate the stage. First stage is that release of inflammatory substance. That substance are bradykinin, prostaglandin, histamine and leukotrienes. Second stage is vasodilatation, and via this vasodilatation there is increased blood flow. Third stage is increased capillary permeability. Fourth stage is that along with the capillary permeability increase, the leukocyte will infiltrate or reach to the site of an injury via chemotaxis, that you guys already know in the blood lecture. And the fifth stage is the phagocytosis and ultimately growth of a fibrous tissue to help the healing of the inflammation. Now what is the effect of glucocorticoid in this stage of the inflammation? How glucocorticoid will prevent this stage, or how it will abolish the inflammation? Now effect of inflammation. Now glucocorticoid has a 2 inflammatory action. Now first action is that is block the early stages of the inflammation, and second stage is cause rapid resolution of the inflammation. It will increase the healing. Now there are difference in between in these two effect of the glucocorticoid. First effect of a glucocorticoid or cortisol over the inflammation is that it will block the stage that we mentioned in our previous slide. Got it? And the second effect of the glucocorticoid is that if inflammation is already there, then it causes rapid healing. Got it? This is the effect of this is the normal hand and this is the inflamed hand. So if you give steroid to this particular patient, it increases the rapid healing. This is the actual effect of the steroid drug, or actual role of a steroid drug in inflammation. So how cortisol will prevent the development of inflammation? Let's see this. So cortisol will basically decrease all aspect of the inflammatory process. First is the stabilize the lysosomal membrane. So once it stabilizes the lysosomal membrane, no more proteolytic enzyme or no more inflammatory substance that will release. Got it? So first stage of the inflammation is that release of a chemical, right? So by stabilizing the lysosomal membrane, that proteolytic enzyme or chemical that is actually stored in the lysosome, so it cannot be get released. Second one is by decreasing that, it will decrease the capillary permeability and decrease both migration of a WBC and phagocytosis. So basically decrease the chemotactic factor production. It will decrease the migration of the WBC because this chemotactic factor is actually the substance that is released from the lysosome. Now by stabilizing the lysosomal membrane, it causes decreased release of the chemical substance. That chemical substance perform this chemotactic factor and causes or attract the WBC, and this very chemotactic factor will increase capillary permeability. So by stabilizing the lysosomal membrane, एक तीर दो शिकार हो जाएंगे. First, it will decrease the capillary permeability and also decrease the migration of the WBC. Now here's the thing. The effect of cortisol over the blood cell is that it will decrease lymphocyte, right? So this lymphocyte will ultimately responsible for immune response. So by decreasing the lymphocyte, it will decrease the immune response. And by using this mechanism, steroid drug will be given in any transplantation. If there is a kidney transplant or any the lung tissue transplant or the liver transplant, any transplant tissue, that transplant tissue by during this transplant and after the transplant we give steroid, so decrease the immunity of that particular person and it will decrease the chance of tissue rejection. Now one more thing the steroid will do, it will decrease the fever. So how it will decrease the fever? First we discuss that. Steroid will decrease the release of interleukin 1 from the WBC. And now this interleukin 1 or IL-1 is basically excite the hypothalamus temperature control system, and set point it will increase the set point. So by decreasing the release of interleukin 1, cortisol will decrease the temperature, and once the temperature is decreased, it will leads to decreased vasodilatation and decreased capillary permeability. So these are the effect of cortisol in prevent the development of the inflammation itself, right? Now this is the one set of action. Now another set of action is that what happens when there is a inflammation is already there. So if the inflammation is already there, how cortisol causes rapid resolution of the inflammation? The answer is that it will increase the mobilization of the amino acid that we discussed in the effect of cortisol in the protein metabolism. By increasing the mobilization of the amino acid, that amino acid is eventually used to repair the damaged tissue. Now the effect of cortisol over the carbohydrate metabolism is that it will increase the gluconeogenesis and it will make more glucose available for critical metabolic system. It will increase the glucose available for more to utilize the more amount of glucose in that critical situation. Now cortisol will also increase the lipolysis and make free fatty acid available for fuel as the second source of the energy. So basically what cortisol do in rapid resolution is that it inactivate and remove inflammatory processes. Got it? Now how the cortisol will be useful in allergic reaction? Now basic antigen antibody reaction is basically not affected by cortisol. So what cortisol do? Now inflammatory response that is due to that antibody and antigen reaction is basically more serious than actual allergic reaction. Got it? Once the allergy is set in, that allergy that is generated by antigen antibody reaction, sometimes that antigen antibody reaction is not that much of harmful, but inflammatory response that is generated by this antigen antibody reaction, that inflammatory process is very lethal. So what cortisol do? Cortisol will do two things. It reduce the inflammation and decrease release of inflammatory substance. So by doing this function, cortisol will eventually prevent the anaphylactic shock and even death. This is all about the effect of cortisol. Now let's discuss about the regulation of the glucocorticoid secretion. Now this is the little bit of trick here. Hypothalamus has a particular nuclei. That nuclei will release CRH, that is corticotropin releasing hormone, right? What is the name of that nuclei? I told you that name in growth hormone. This is the anterior pituitary hormone. The name of the nuclei is paraventricular nuclei. This paraventricular nuclei will release two hormones. One is CRH, another one is TRH. I told you that nuclei at the anterior pituitary hormone. I told that nuclei in thyroid hormone, and right now I am give you the name of the nuclei and the hormone responsible or hormone that is released from that nuclei third time. So please remember, paraventricular nuclei will release two hormones. One is CRH, another one is TRH. TRH which eventually leads to increased release of the TSH from the anterior pituitary. CRH will eventually leads to goes to anterior pituitary and increase release of the ACTH. Now this ACTH will enter inside the adrenal cortex and it will increase the release of glucocorticoid as well as adrenal androgen. But right now our focus is over glucocorticoid, so just mention glucocorticoid. Now let's understand something about ACTH. ACTH is actually the peptide hormone, so it has a basically chain and 39 amino acid sequence. This ACTH will originate from a particular one long chain protein, that is POMC, that is propionmelanocortin. So by cutting down this POMC, one portion is ACTH. Got it? Half-life of the ACTH is 10 minutes. Now one more thing, this from this POMC, MSH is also formed. Now what is MSH? Melanocyte stimulating hormone. Got it? So by this one molecule POMC, ACTH is formed, and by this POMC, MSH will also form. So some of the action of the ACTH will increase the melanocyte production, increase pigmentation if the level of ACTH is more than normal. Got it? Why ACTH causes pigmentation? Because ACTH and MSH are both formed from a single peptide chain, that is propionmelanocortin, POMC. So in applied aspect, by somehow if the level of ACTH will increase, it has the action of higher pigmentation. Got it? And the secretion of the ACTH is basically irregular burst throughout the day. So ACTH secretion is not continuous, rather it is pulsatile fashion. So if the ACTH secretion is in pulsatile fashion, so the glucocorticoid will be, right? So plasma cortisol will be rise and fall in response to that burst. That burst or pulsatile secretion of glucocorticoid, it is called circadian rhythm of a glucocorticoid secretion. Now let's discuss that circadian rhythm of the glucocorticoid. Now that burst of the glucocorticoid is most frequent in early morning between 4 am to 10 am. Remember the time. Burst or the secretion of the glucocorticoid is more during early morning between 4 am to 10 am, and it has an inverse relationship with the eosinophil count. So eosinophil count is lower in 4 am and 10 am. This diurnal rhythm of the glucocorticoid secretion is because of the diurnal secretion of the ACTH. Got it? And this diurnal rhythm of ACTH secretion will ultimately lead to cyclical changes in the glucocorticoid secretion. And biological clock that is responsible for this circadian rhythm, it is located over the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus. So by somehow there is a particular relation between the suprachiasmatic nucleus and ACTH secretion. So during the early morning, that gives signal to the ACTH secreting nuclei, that is paraventricular nuclei, and it causes burst release of CRH, and this burst release of CRH will cause the burst release of ACTH, and this burst release of ACTH will cause burst release of the glucocorticoid. Now let's discuss the effect of CRH in the regulation. Now as far as the CRH is concerned, in emergency situation, in stressful condition, there is increased ACTH secretion, and this increased ACTH secretion is basically mediated via hypothalamus through release of the CRH. Got it? So in emergency situation, somehow CRH release will increase, and this CRH release is eventually increase the ACTH secretion, and that ACTH secretion will causes release of the glucocorticoid. So in any stressful condition, in any emergency situation, how the CRH release will increase? So the answer is that many part of our brain will converge to the paraventricular nuclei of a hypothalamus. So hypothalamic paraventricular nuclei get connection with various aspect of the brain, and whenever that part of a brain that is stimulated during emergency, during stressful, during fear, it will causes increased release of a CRH. Now how CRH secretion is affected? Let's enumerate the cause of a release of the CRH. First thing is, in response to emotional stress, fear and anxiety, input from a amygdala nucleus will eventually converge over the CRH. This is one thing. Second thing is, during diurnal rhythm, input from suprachiasmatic nucleus, it converge over the paraventricular nuclei. and in response to injury, the input from a pain pathway, input that ascends to the hypothalamus via nociceptive pain pathway and reticular formation is eventually converge over the CRH secreting nuclei, that is paraventricular nuclei. And here's the thing, baroreceptor exert as an inhibitory input via NTS. Now what is NTS? NTS is a nucleus tractus solitarius, and it will eventually increase CRH and then increase ACTH secretion. Got it? So now let's discuss the feedback of the glucocorticoid secretion. The glucocorticoid will negative feedback inhibition to the ACTH production, and it also has a negative feedback to the CRH secretion. Now both this, now see, ACTH secretion will increase by, see, the secretion of ACTH now is regulated under two things. One is whenever there is more amount of CRH, there is more amount of ACTH secretion. Another thing, if more glucocorticoid, it will decrease ACTH secretion. Got it? So rate of ACTH secretion is determined by two opposing force. One is the stimuli that converge through the hypothalamus to ACTH, hypothalamus to increase ACTH secretion. Another one is the action of a glucocorticoid will eventually decrease the ACTH secretion. Now this is all about the action of CRH and ACTH. Now how this CRH and ACTH will work on a target cell. Now mechanism of action. Now we are not going to detail about mechanism of action because that is covered already in receptor and signaling. We are just mentioning the pathway. So the action of the CRH will use cyclic AMP pathway, and it will eventually increase the synthesis and release of the ACTH from the corticotrope. Now as action of the ACTH is concerned, again ACTH will also use the cyclic AMP pathway. See, cyclic AMP, this ACTH and CRH both has a C in its spelling, so basically it use cyclic AMP pathway. That is the formula that I mentioned in our receptor and signaling chapter number 2, right? The mnemonics or the formula to remember how the hormone will work via which receptor, that I already mentioned in detail in receptor and signaling 2. So go through that, it is very easy. So by using the cyclic AMP pathway, what the ACTH will do, ACTH will increase the conversion of the CHO means cholesterol, to pregnenolone, and increase the secretion of glucocorticoid and adrenal androgen. Now this is all about the regulation of a glucocorticoid. In next lecture we are going to learn about the applied aspect. Thank you.